Hey there fellow Planeswalkers, I'm Justice, aka Gatewatcher, and this video is brought to you by viewers like you, so please drop a like, hit that subscribe button, and check out my Patreon for additional content. You can also help by shopping my online merch store on Threadless. Thanks for your support. Alright, let's get into it. For these budget deck tech episodes, I follow a few rules. I'm building these decks for under $30 using Scryfall pricing. This cost excludes the Oathbreaker itself if it costs over $5, and this cost excludes basic lands. I assume you already own those. I build these decks using the 6x6 method, meaning 6 cards for 6 strategies to make the deck work. As I'm explaining the cards, I'll also be explaining how to pilot the deck and how to win with it. Entering the Sanctum today is Ashiok Dream Render from War of the Spark. Ashiok was introduced in the plane of Theros. They were visiting this world due to its intense devotion to gods. Where there is belief, there is doubt, and where there is doubt, there is nightmare, where Ashiok derives their power. At one point, Ashiok planned to put the entire plane of Theros to sleep. They succeeded in several towns, but their comic run was cut short, so we don't really know what happened. Assumedly, Dak Faden saves the day. Currently, Ashiok is on the move seeking the Phyrexians, the scariest things in the entire multiverse. This iteration of Ashiok is a 3-drop with 2 black-blue hybrid mana in its casting cost. This really helps us build, as it will primarily be a black-centric deck. It comes in with 5 loyalty and has the static ability of preventing opponents' spells and abilities from allowing them to search libraries, which can really gum up land fixing and can also prevent general tutoring. Its -1 ability mills target player for 4 and then exiles all opponents' graveyards. The signature spell is Living Death, which exiles all creatures from graveyards, sacrifices all creatures on the field, and then places all the exiled creatures onto the battlefield under their respective owner's control. With Ashiok's loyalty ability, we can mill ourselves, then exile everyone else's graveyard, so this spell becomes a board wipe and a one-sided devastating reanimation spell. To get the most out of reanimating, we'll need a big graveyard, so let's get into strategy 1, Fuel the Yard. Mire Triton, Forbidden Alchemy, and Dark Deal are all one-time effects that get us things into the graveyard. Mire Triton is a 2-drop Death Toucher that mills us 2, so they make for a good early game blocker. Forbidden Alchemy gets us a card into hand, and then the rest into the graveyard, and can be cast again from the graveyard for its flashback cost. Dark Deal acts like a wheel, but gets everyone a new hand with 1 less card. This is great to fill our graveyard and mess with our opponent's game plans. Extractor Demon and Monastery Siege are more recursive plans. Extractor Demon will mill 2 every time a creature leaves the battlefield. It also has Unearth, so we can pull it from the graveyard for a turn. Monastery Siege, we will almost always want to choose the cons mode, drawing us an additional card and then allowing us to discard creatures into our graveyard. Our best miller is our Oathbreaker Ashiok, which can get us 4 cards into the graveyard and then enables our signature spell. Let's talk about where we're going with this graveyard with strategy number 2, Forbidden Arts. Apprentice Necromancer can sacrifice itself to bring back something nastier from our graveyard, but only for a turn. Obsessive Stitcher can do the same, but return it permanently for a higher cost. It can also perform some looting to help pad our graveyard and find cards we need. Exhume is a more compact version of our signature spell, getting only 1 creature back into play. Paired with Ashiok though, this still becomes a powerful reanimator for only 2 mana. House Guild Mage can perform different roles, either as a miller with its surveil ability, or tapping down hostile forces. Deranged Assistant can help us ramp and throw things into our graveyard. Living Death is our true masterpiece, getting tons of creatures back to our battlefield and removing all of our opponent's creatures. If we have a strong enough graveyard, resolving this spell can be game winning. Let's check out some of our creatures we want back with strategy 3, Little Haymakers. Rotting Regisaur isn't quite little, but its mana cost sure is. Getting this back from the graveyard or hard casting it work for us. Its ability also helps us fill the graveyard with other creatures to use later on. Plaguecrafter and Demon's Disciple are potent with their abilities. Living Death misses on killing planeswalkers, but when either enters, our opponent will be forced to sacrifice their planeswalkers since their boards will be empty. In the case of Plaguecrafter, they'll also need to discard a card if they can't do either. This affects their own board as well, but will typically sacrifice themselves as they enter. A cruel world perhaps, but we're playing the bad guy here. Stinkweed Imp serves us best in the graveyard, letting us mill 5 to put it back into our hand as an easy discard target. It also performs well as a blocker if necessary. Hostage Taker is our best removal of non-creature permanents. Any stacks piece is a good target to give us its benefit. Our final small spell packs a big punch. Mogis' Marauder grants X creatures haste and intimidate equal to our devotion to black. We're playing mostly black, so that devotion should be pretty high, and can enable us to make some nasty plays. Let's check out our big guns in strategy 4, Large Entities. Thief of Blood enters the battlefield and steals all planeswalkers' powers for itself, easily making it a large flying threat. Then Rova Horror services as additional removal and discard to boot. Vela the Nightclad works for us as an anti-board wipe card, as each creature that leaves the battlefield will result in an opponent losing 1 life. This can lead to a funny win if we cast Living Dead a second time. Lord of the Pit and Zathra Demon are essentially the same powerhouse, each requiring a sacrifice at our upkeep. Zathra Demon has the additional bonus of each opponent losing life equal to the sacrificed creature's power. Perhaps the nastiest creature we can bring back is Grey Merchant of Asphodel, lovingly known as Gary in the MTG community. When Gary enters the battlefield, each opponent loses X life, where X is our devotion to black. We then gain that much life. With a wide enough board being revived, Gary might just outright eliminate all competition, or at the very least, make our life total very, very large. To make sure we're getting the right things in our graveyard, let's move on to Strategy 5, Jump In. Twisted Abomination, Horror of the Broken Lands, and Undead Gladiator can all cycle themselves into the graveyard and give us a bit of benefit. Upon returning to the battlefield, they all serve as excellent beaters. Archfiend of Ifnir can cycle itself as well, and also benefits from other discard abilities, slowly melting our opponent's boards. Corpse Connoisseur can tutor a specific creature to our graveyard, ensuring us the perfect revival strategy. Though our finest tutor is Buried Alive, which will find us 3 creatures to put it into the graveyard for only 3 mana. Our big targets for this will typically be Gary, Lord of the Pit, and Zathra Demon. Returning to play all at once will cause 10 life loss for each opponent, 30 life gain for us, and on our next upkeep, make our opponents lose another 7 life. No plan is perfect without some contingencies though, so let's see Strategy 6, Clever Casting. Mystical Dispute and Spell Pierce are our go-to counterspells to ensure our plans go unfazed. Songs of the Damned can effectively ramp us into a win when our opponents aren't expecting it. Release to the Wind does a lot. We can either use it to protect one of our own permanents, or remove an opponent's permanent until they have proper priority time. It can also refresh our Oathbreaker if loyalty is low. Nephalia Smuggler can flicker another one of our creatures, either triggering an ETB or saving them from a targeted spell, though at a bit of a cost. Our last trick up our sleeve is Boral's Expertise, which can clear out up to 3 artifacts or creatures to our opponent's hand, and then lets us cast the card with CMC 4 or less. This can mean quite a big power dynamic swing when used at a good time. That's all our cards, so let's move to check out the final price. The average Ashiok deck will cost $168.34. Meanwhile, our Ashiok Heavy Sleeper deck will only take $29.65. That's all for this episode. Let me know in the comments what nightmares you want to fill the board with this deck. Did I miss a budget demon that would work well? Or maybe you've got an idea a bit over budget that would make for a splash. If you're not quite ready to planeswalk away, check out my Patreon to get access to my Oathbreaker Discord server where we talk and play Oathbreaker, as well as receive other awesome benefits. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.